Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second episode of the week of Church is Stupid.
Come a butt.
I'm Andy.
I'm Ruth.
I'm Elijah.
I almost forgot to introduce myself.
Well, so we just did that like how we normally would do an ending because we went into like the we didn't like say hello at the beginning kind of thing.
It's true.
So hello, everybody.
Hello?
I guess I did say hello. I don't know. So we're back with the second episode
I
of
don't
this
know why
week.
you said goodbye.
Did I say goodbye?
No, I said hello, though.
Oh, come on, Angie.
Totally lost on him.
Angie,
Completely lost.
I was like, he doesn't get it, does he? Andy doesn't know why you say goodbye when he says hello.
He got it after.
I know.
I did.
I know.
You say goodbye. I say hello.
DMCA.
Hey,
Just off of humming like 3 notes.
as long as it doesn't sound anywhere near it, we're fine.
See, that's the technical thing, but I think they look for little kids humming it and then DMCA the crap out of them for it.
Oh, YouTube.
So anyways,
we get to deal with the more.
so Ruth's got this look on her face like, is this getting scrapped or are we going with this
Well,
one?
we're going with this.
Okay.
Oh,
Do you want to scrap it? Is that where you're at?
No, it's fine.
she's just
Okay,
lost.
great. So now we have to switch to a more serious mode,
Oh, crap.
which takes a little bit. So we deal with this topic a little bit, and the de-evolution.
That's a
Nope,
word.
that's not. It's not what I meant.
But it is a word.
It is a word. I'm very glad that I know it's a word. I think part of the seriousness of last episode has kicked in, and we're kind of in a slappy, happy kind of mode here. But this idea of why we stay in the church.
Yes.
And in particular, our two perspectives on this is what we're looking for this episode.
I think that was Andy's nice way of telling me to not talk.
Yeah, no kidding.
no,
man.
you can.
I think
We're really
you and
looking
me
for,
are we're the ones that are going to be talking this
Well,
episode.
Ruth,
right?
you have to take on the role that I took on last week. You're the question person. You're the interviewee. I didn't save any of the questions that.
Wait,
I
are you
asked
telling
for.
her what role she needs to be placed in right now?
I'm filling my role of misogyny, please.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't because you're a woman. I swear.
Say something, please.
I
Save
feel
us
like-
from this.
How do I fix this? What do you want from me? It's 3 minutes in and I've already given up.
Well, find your hope again.
Oh.
I will do my
Okay,
best.
so last week or last episode rather, we were talking about a lot of the complications that come with describing, a lot of the shame culture when it comes to men in the church and how
I'm going to add this. I think we're also dealing with some of those things that revolve around marriage.
We did talk a lot about
we
the
did talk about
marriage
marriage too.
expectations.
That's true. And yeah, I feel like last week's was even a little more similar to, or I'm sorry, I said it again. Last episode, the Tuesday episode, was more similar to last Thursday's episode than it was to last Tuesday's. If that follows, because I feel like we were a little more comfortable just talking about, hey, this is weird to talk about because it was harder for Andy and I to really talk about that kind of stuff, without mentioning how it also affects women as well as men while trying to make the distinction at the same time.
I think that's a funny thing that we do. Because when I think about when I think about talking about men's issues,
Yeah.
I think like part of society has raised me that I can't think about men's issues, and that may be like
Sure.
a rude thing or whatever. But it's like
Well, yeah. I mean,
I'm not supposed to put my issues as a forefront of anything because it's like, oh yeah, I'm a man, but other people have it worse, and it's just,
it's walking the line between being considerate and acknowledging that there are more parties than yourself involved, walking the line between that and making sure that you're not shaming yourself for being born the way that you were, or you know what I mean? Because neither we all understand that different issues, apply to different people, and like that you shouldn't have to compare what you're going through to someone else in order to validate whatever you're going through. And we both know that. But we also want to make it clear that we're not that we are very intentionally trying not to invalidate anyone else's experience by putting our own above them. So I don't know. There shouldn't have to be a line that you have, or a very clear distinction that that you have to make. But I think we're trying to do our best to make it clear to our audience that we're really not trying to put any one or any certain degree of issues like on a pedestal above things that other people go through. And when it comes to things that men go through versus what women go through, we're seeing a huge movement to expose a lot of misogynistic roots that are in like our our society and our culture. And there are a lot of men that are caught up in old ways of thinking too, and men who are also trying to help. And I think we just want to make it clear that we're talking about what men are going through while intentionally not trying to say that they're more important. They should be. Everything obviously in a perfect world should be of equal importance. In a world where everyone is on the exact same page and fighting for the best outcome in everyone's lives. But unfortunately, that's not the world that we live in. So,
did you have a thought? Okay.
Sorry,
no, you like had moved like you were gonna. Okay.
Oh,
no,
I got an
apologize.
email on my phone, and so I moved to look at it. But
no.
Other than that, no, I think that I understand, and especially because walking that line between you don't want to say your problems are worse or more important or anything than anybody else's, but I don't think it's fair to then say there is nothing that's there. You know what I mean? And that's all we're talking about. And you've been very, very clear and very articulate about, and it was all through the first episode of this week where you made it very, very clear every time that you would talk about something that you dealt with, you compared it with, or like tried to remind everybody that it's not as bad as what other people deal with. And I think that's part of the way that men are really taught how to deal with their issues. Yeah. Because there's almost this idea that you really shouldn't be talking about them. And I don't think that that's fair either. And so I guess this is my encouragement to you that you don't have to keep clarifying. It's very much appreciated, and I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But we're not here saying this is the most important issue that's plaguing the church right now is shame culture on men. I don't think any of us are arguing that.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate the caveat. I appreciate that. But I think you're good.
Yeah.
You're good. You can.
You're probably right.
So we want to talk about this idea of why we stay in the church.
Yeah. And
I think I'm going to say my perspective is interesting on it.
Okay.
Because
I don't think it is. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I will turn off the recording right now and end it on you saying, I don't think it is.
I'm just saying, I'm sorry, you set it up for this perfect joke right there. You're like, I think that my opinion's very and so I was like, oh, I gotta do it.
It's not
really
I'm sorry. That wasn't
yeah,
really
a good joke, Ruth. You just said that his opinion isn't
good
important
joke.
or unique.
Thanks for shoving me down further into my male rabbit hole of my opinion doesn't matter.
I'm so sorry. That was probably an in poor taste joke, but hey.
Sorry, I bumped the mic there.
It didn't pick up.
But we'll see.
They pick up like these. Okay. But not the point.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
So
Continue.
I've been raised in this house where gender politics haven't been pushed on me, this entire idea. And so for a majority of my life, it was this idea of, yeah, I can do whatever the heck I want to, and I don't have to fall by any gender norms. If I ended up being gay in any way, then my parents would fully accept me. And so I don't have that perspective on anything, or all of this kind of stuff. My mother's job may disown me, but she would never do something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And so I never had that fear, but I got to college and I joined the fraternity that I was a part of, the Christian fraternity, Beta Upsilon Chi, which Bucks for short, which is much more popular down in the Bible Belt of the United States.
Okay.
And so it's very, very Bible driven, men driven, like being the proper father, being the proper leader and everything. And I loved some of the things that like happened with that organization. Like the guys were all great that were a part of it, but some of the ideas that we were taught were very, very misogynistic. And it was this idea of we are supposed to be the provider for our house. And I think since leaving home, that idea has been something that I struggle with personally, because God calls us to be the man of the household, to be the one who takes care of all the physical labor around the house, the one who provides food for the table when you come home, and all this different kinds of stuff. But like I have looked at some of like my own abilities, and I know that in all likelihood I will not be the breadwinner in my house. Like out of everything, I think what I'm going to end up doing for a job, for a living, is going to matter more to me than it will to like society, and so I won't get paid for it that much.
Right.
Like I'm a journalist. I want to like, you know, be a journalist, find stories, tell stories to people, and you make practically minimum wage when you do that.
Right.
And so I like have settled with this idea that I'm never going to be the person who brings home everything, and that my wife will have to help me. And that's like an idea that I struggle with, because of my religious upbringing, because I have to be the man. Like it's,
Yeah.
and I also struggle with this idea of being the spiritual leader. I've had a few positions where I have been a spiritual leader or been a supposed voice for God. I don't know how to call it correctly, but like a pathway to learning religious parts, and I fail. I question everything so often, and I have no answers, and I struggle with that fact, because how do you teach a kid to worship and love God when you question on a daily basis his, like, if he's real or not? And like I struggle a lot when it comes to religion and being the spiritual leader of a household. And I know that if I was to have children, that I'd want to be able to raise them to be free thinkers, to be able to, you know, have all those ideas for themselves.
Yeah.
But I understand that having this religious background that I have, that I would try to force some of these aspects onto them, when I don't even fully believe them myself, which is why it scares me to become a father in any perspective.
Yeah.
And I feel like religion has had a very big impact on whether or not someday I will become a father or not, or whether I will be a good husband or not. And it scares me. And sometimes I struggle with how to deal with it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that's my perspective on it all.
I'm trying to connect that to my own personal experience.
Hey, if yours is completely different, go for it, my friend.
Well, I think that we did have pretty different childhoods. I mean, it's weird for me to try to identify in every aspect like how I was brought up and the things that I was told were right and wrong, and how much of it was shown by example. You know what I mean? It's hard to like sometimes differentiate and attribute like whether or not which was which. But like me growing, I grew up in a very well-off community, and my father has been a master plumber for all of my life, and that is how our house has. That's the money that we've made. He provided for us through that, and he's still doing that to this day. Ever like since the day I was born, I think before to today, he's been a plumber. And I don't want to talk for too long because I could go even further into, when I was in school and how trades were looked at versus, like university degrees and stuff like that. But he provided for his family by that, and he still does to this day. And my mom was, the stay-at-home mother who took care of me and my brother, my younger brother, growing up like all my life. So trying to like remember or figure out how much of that idea of a family dynamic was directly taught to me as being like how it should be, and how much of it just became normal to me through through example is difficult for me, because I think it's a good mixture of both the way that I was brought up. And my parents too have definitely changed a lot over there. When I was born, like my mom and dad were very new in their faith too. So we kind of both grew up in our faith together, and we both changed quite a bit in like expectations and beliefs. But I do remember growing up sort of, the idea of being the man of the household was definitely was pretty prevalent in the way that I was brought up. I don't think that it was intentionally like fear induced. I don't think it was done with the intent of like pressure, like direct intentional pressure or fear. I think that the idea was that it was a blessing to be able to be the man of the household, sort of a thing. But regardless, through time, it can be very pressuring, when you eventually move out of the house and you're figuring out what you want to do with your life. And eventually, you do get married, and then you get married knowing that you're not going to be like the financial provider of the household, and you're definitely not going to be the spiritual leader of the household. Not that like it's not that it should have to be like a goal that you either attain or you don't, but growing up, I mean, it sort of was to me, because it just that's what was considered. It was considered like you either are or you aren't, sort of a thing. All that to say, it is hard for me to remember how much of it again was, me being sat down in church or being sat down in my house and taught like this is how things should be and this is how they shouldn't be, and how much of that way of thinking is just ingrained in me because that's the family I was raised in. I think it's a mixture of both, and I think that they were with good intentions. Like I truly do believe most people are, not all. I want to believe that most people, regardless of how they think things should be, are done with well intentions. But it did also end up making me feel a really good amount of pressure to stay. I went to Spring Arbor for 1 year, university, which is actually where I met Ruth, but I only went there for 1 year, and I didn't want to go back because I just was not passionate about what I was going there for. And not to mention for the immense amount of money that university cost to go and not be passionate about what I was going there for, there was like a huge amount of pressure on me to go back because I started school and I have to finish it because that's what you do. That's what you do as a man. And it took one of my friends, actually, one of my older friends, looking at me and just saying, dude, you don't have to go through with this if you don't want to. Like, screw, like, I don't know where you're getting that from, but you just don't have to do that. And it took that for me to really realize, like, wow, him saying that was such like a shattering, like the glass in front of me. I don't know. It really like opened my eyes, just him telling me that like so nonchalantly, basically. And it did make me realize that that was one of the biggest indicators that sort of mindset was present in me. And I still deal with it to this day. So the upbringing, I think it was different than yours, but I think we're basically talking about the same sort of mentality through completely different upbringings, and how it's still there. And it's really there because of, at least for us personally, I think we both saw it because of church in a certain way, right? I mean, like you were saying that a lot of those expectations you started to hear about and experience through. I guess you said it was through your fraternity, though, right?
Well, it was through my fraternity, but my fraternity was very church based,
Right. Okay.
religion based,
And a lot of mine was in my family and in my church because they were very new into the church too, and they were learning things, and they were learning a new lifestyle and a new thing to believe when I was also growing up. So we were learning like together, and we were being taught together, through a lot of it was through the church. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably the best that you and I have been able to put into words or personal experience, like some of the things that I think and I wouldn't even necessarily say that my parents or even my congregation at the church I went to was shaming me like intentionally if I wasn't like living up to that. But I don't think you can say that it was anything less than a direct like expectation of what men need to be to be considered real, like quote unquote godly men. You know what I mean?
And I think most of the shame like around this comes built in that religion, but it comes mostly from the personal, like it comes from yourself,
Right.
or at least in my own perspective, I find that like all of the shame that I feel for this comes mostly from like myself being put upon myself, or like from different conversations, like what we were talking about last episode with the conversation that you guys had at dinner where your friends were like, oh, so what's it like being married to a pastor, or like different things like that, like things that you get asked that it's not that you're different from what society expects from you to be, kind of thing, like that. That the shame isn't directly like, oh wow, you're not the person, or like that kind of a thing, but it's a lot personal, and it comes from yourself and like shaming yourself kind of thing.
I think
Does that make sense?
It's a good mix. I think that when the way it comes to maybe like affect me afterwards, or the way that it sticks with me in regards to my specific situation with, like really not having a job or a completed education, I think a lot of that is a personal thing that I need to deal with within myself. I think that some of the things that people say, even though they might not be with the intention of looking at you and saying you're not living up. Sometimes a lot of the things that people do still say or ask are still, though, through that lens of expectation. Sometimes, I don't know. Yes, I think you're right. I think I'm thinking of the specific situation you were saying, and I think that I might be in a little bit of a different page than you about what that encounter was, because I think that was a level beyond personal for me.
So here's what I'm gonna say. Since I know both of you relatively well, I would say your stories are just very different in that way. And I think for you that's very true, and I think for you it's not as much. I think there's been more outside pressure. Sorry for you, Andy. Thanks. And so I think you're both right. I think that in your experience, and I think as we are moving forward, is it wrong to say? It is wrong to say. My hope is that it's more like what Andy deals with, but I don't mean that like that. Hopefully, it would be nice if this all went away.
Well, I know what you mean.
I didn't mean that. Like, I didn't actually mean that. But I think that because it's still bad to internalize things, and I don't actually want you to have to deal with that.
Well, I think the other issue is that it has become that.
Yeah.
Is that it all is internalized, and so men don't talk about it. Like all of this shame I put upon myself, I don't tell people about the shame that I put upon myself because it's all internal. I have to deal with my crap before I can be a man, really. And so it's very unhealthy, and it's very not good that a majority, and I'm going to say a majority of men in society, but like that we put our shame upon ourselves. Like it's our problem, we need to solve it, and then we can be a man.
I see. Yes. Okay. I see what you're saying by personal. Then, like,
I'm not saying like other people outside don't shame us. 100% people like shame you for not.
You're saying a big part of the issue is that we do internalize it so often and keep it that way.
And it's kind of a cliche that it's like this whole like men internalize everything and eventually erupt into physical violence with women or different things like that, which I completely understand. Like it does happen because we aren't supposed to like talk about it. We don't We don't cry in front of women. We don't like do anything like that, or like scary movies. We're the ones who has to be the strong stone in the room when I am a mess during a scary movie.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, now I'm just really disappointed that we've all never watched a scary movie together.
Ooh, we gotta.
Oh, it's gonna
I've
happen.
tried.
Well,
But
We've done-
so
we've
we
done
are
this-
really close to
We're
the
both
end.
talking over each other again. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to talk over you this time and just keep going because you asked a question at the very beginning of the episode that you absolutely have not actually.
We have not answered at all.
So my question, and I'm okay if we go a little bit over just to give you guys a chance to actually address this question if you need it. Why do you stay still with all of this stuff that you guys have been dealing with? Why stay a part of an institution that tends to promote that particular belief that has the more traditional, quote unquote, values?
This will probably be a little easier for me to answer than you, Andy, because
Mine seems completely toxic towards myself, my own answers, but go. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna say because you're actually involved, in a lot of ways, pretty involved with the church right now, I'd say, and I'm outside of being like Ruth's husband, a pastor's husband. I'm really not involved with the church at all. Really, this is the most that I'm involved, I would say, with this specific institution, is being on this podcast with you guys, which is really just because I like doing it. But in regard, I don't know, I would say whether it's just, being a Christian and intentionally or being part of the church, I truly believe that the heart of the gospel and at the heart of Jesus's message is so much more than what we do to ourselves and the things that like we do to others. I guess what I mean more by that is I truly think that the message of the gospel can offer so much healing and truly honest to God, just help personally. I believe that can help me better myself in all ways because it means so much more than just telling me how to be a man or telling a woman how to be a woman. I think that the message of the gospel applies to everybody, and that the reason that I'm still Christian and that I'm still part of the church is because I really want to see that reality show itself in our world. And I want to see people actually have their lives changed for the true and honest to God, for the better, and to see that reflected on how they treat everyone else, which is a total cliche and like broad stroke answer of I think that it can help make the world a better place. But I mean, I think that the message of the gospel is one of the most beautiful, amazing, and loving things to believe in. I really do. And if I thought that the reality of what it means to be a Christian actually boiled down to what it means to, quote, be a man in the ways that we're taught a lot, then I wouldn't stay. I just don't believe that those are really the fundamental truths. I think that there's something much, much deeper in regards to what it means to truly believe in the teachings of Jesus than just saying being a man looks like this. And despite all the toxic mentalities that a lot of the church today does sort of put on, their youth or anyone really, in this specific case too, when it comes to the ways that they affect men, I have to believe that the truth of the gospel is that that's not Jesus's heart, and that there's a lot more richness to it than just what we're actually doing. And I hope that I can make a real good difference in the future that isn't just that. But
Well-
that isn't just doing that like what the church currently does to men, but I believe there's something more than just that, and that's why I stay.
See, I think my perspective very much so is different. I
Okay.
think that the reason why I stay is because the church sets those the fundamentals of what a man is supposed to be,
Yeah.
but I take them differently than what the church sets them as. Because biblically, if you look at it, your like ideal for what a man is supposed to be is like Abraham, and your ideal fathers, your like ideal male leaders in the Old Testament, which I want to see changed. Because I think the ideals for what a man is supposed to be come far better through the eyes of Jesus,
Yeah.
through the ideas of a forgiver, a healer, a world shaker, honestly, because the whole Jesus thing. But it's this, it's a pursuit of more Christ-like goals is the reason why I stay a part of the church.
Exactly.
Is because I want to be a man who's like Christ, not a man who is like Abraham.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It 100% makes sense to me. I know exactly
I'm
what you mean.
terrible because I always take it back to I want to be a person like Christ.
Okay.
Which is what you're saying. I know.
I get that. I'm taking it from the perspective.
You are.
like, You know, the fatherly role, that
It's
kind
true.
of thing. That's how I want
No, I
myself
totally
to
understand.
be a man, is to be Christ-like as a man.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like
I know.
you can definitely be Christ-like as a woman or Christ-like as a non-binary person. But
we
my
know.
own personal goal is to
Yeah.
be Christ-like.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just being mean.
You're perfectly fine to be mean.
But yeah, thank you guys for sharing that and for sharing your heart behind these. I know that it's not very promoted to talk about these male shames, and so I appreciate you guys sharing your heart. I say that like you're guests here, even though you both are also.
It's been wonderful
regularly
having you on.
Thank
honestly.
you so much for joining us.
I don't know why I'm
this
British
week.
now.
Oh, I'll see you again next week.
Yeah, can't get rid of me.
I'll see you.
But I know
next
that
week.
it can be difficult and it can be hard. I think sharing is something that, especially these more deep issues, that doesn't always come as naturally to all people. So
Yeah.
thank you guys. And yeah, I also would like to start. Did you have anything you wanted to summarize
Oh, I'm
up?
good.
Are you good?
I think we ended it where we wanted to end it.
I'd like to take a minute and oh my gosh,
Gonna hold your
you
hand,
guys.
but you give me a high five.
Didn't know what to do.
You all couldn't witness what just happened, but be grateful you couldn't.
From
Anyhow,
everyone here at Churches Stupid.
well, I was
She
gonna
has
say
more
I have
announcements.
more announcements.
Yeah.
I'm going to officially begin announcing that starting not the week after Easter, but the week after that, on Fridays at 5:00, we're gonna start releasing some supplementary Bible study podcasts. Woo! So. On this podcast, we don't always get as much time to discuss a lot of the biblical reasons behind why we choose the topics that we do. And so in order to take some time and address those, I, myself, Ruth, shall be leading just short 15-minute max podcast episodes that follow right along with all of the episodes we have had and explain some of the biblical nature behind them. So if you'd like to tune in for those begin, again, not the week after Easter, but the week after that. And it will be 5:00 on Fridays. So we hope you tune into those. Also, don't forget to follow us on either Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're
Or all of the
everywhere. Or all of the above to see some supplementary content, I suppose. And also, we're available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Anchor, and some other ones that I am not entirely positive what they are. Yay! So, from all of us here at Church is Stupid,
Comma
Comma
butt.
butt. Dang it.
I'm
Did
Ruth.
it again. Was a half step off from you.
I tried. I'm Ruth.
I'm Andy. I'm Andy.
And I'm Elijah.
And we hope you have a great week.